6-499-0681 if you'd like to call in. And there's a story that's been in the press somewhat about Russia. Russia is accused of annexing the Arctic for oil reserves and has reinforced fears that Moscow intends to annex unlawfully a vast portion of the ice-covered Arctic, beneath which scientists believe up to 10 billion tons of gas and oil could be buried. Russian ambition for control of the Arctic has provoked Canada to double to $40 million funding for work to map the Arctic seabed in support of its claims over the territory. The Russian icebreakers patrol huge areas of the frozen oceans for months on end, cutting through the ice up to 8 foot thick. There are thought to be 8 in the region, dwarfing the British and American fleets, neither of which includes nuclear-powered ships. Canada also plans to open an Army training center for cold weather fighting at Resolute Bay and Deepwater Port on the northern tip of the Baffin Island, both of which are closed to the disputed region. The country's defense ministry intends to build a special fleet of patrol boats to guard the Northwest Passage. This crisis has raised the specter of Russia and the West joining in a new Cold War over the Arctic unless the United Nations can resolve this dispute. The Shadow Defense Secretary told the Telegraph 4 of the 5 Arctic powers are NATO members, yet NATO seems ill-configured to be able to respond to this sort of activities. We have seen from the Russians, we need to ensure NATO has the will and the capability to deter Russian activity that contravenes international laws or treaties. The Royal United States Institute said the dispute could simmer for years. The message from Vladimir Putin is that Russia will no longer be shackled to treaties signed by Yeltsin when he was half drunk or when Russia was on its knees, he said. This dispute is not only about oil reserves, which might or might not exist, it is about control of sea lanes. Russia's movements could pitch it into a serious territorial dispute with the United States for the first time. Tension in the Arctic is also being heightened by the revival of Russian Cold War era maneuvers. Hardly a week passes without Russia aircraft overflying the North Pole, simulating strikes on enemy bases and shipping. The crisis erupted last year when Russia's submarine crew planted a flag on the Lomonosov Ridge. No country owns the Arctic Ocean or the North Pole, but under the 1982 UN Law of the Sea Convention, each country with a coast has exploitation rights in a limited, exclusive economic zone. On ratification of the convention, and America has yet to ratify it, each country has 10 years to make claims extending its zones. Russia rivals Saudi Arabia as the world's largest oil producer and is estimated to have the largest natural gas supplies. Energy earnings are funding a $189 billion overthrow of its armed forces. I think everyone should find this interesting, and again, this is the kind of information that goes practically unreported. Could this be the beginning of the oil wars where countries start fighting over oil-rich territories, or is that already started in 2003? Iran drops the dollar, begins selling oil in euros. On the last day of April, according to a CNN report, Iran's government confirmed that it has begun selling its oil in euros and in yen. We got a phone call?
Yes, Baron, this is Dave. How are you today?
Hey, good. How you doing, sir?
Once again, I'd like to thank you and Brian for the excellent job you're doing.
Thank you very much, sir.
And to add to what you said with the Russians, there's another angle you could perceive this as. The OPEC and the Arabs have set this high oil price, which the other countries, for example, Russia, could easily discount and sell much cheaper if they chose to. But they're going along with the high price. Same with Canada and South America. They're all enjoying this windfall profit. But my concern would be the concentration of aggressive behavior that's going on in the world is going to inspire the Russians to once again become a superpower. And they've got the money to do it with all this oil and gas they're producing. Russia, I understand right now, has more billionaires than any other country in the world. The money is coming in fast. and you combine that with the aggressive posture of the United States, could be on the threshold of another Cold War. That's all I'd like to say, Brad.
Well, I appreciate you calling in, and every week we do a poll, and this week on our poll, the obvious controlled media that doesn't cover the Bilderberg, North Carolina Superior Court Judge Robert Hobgood, Pentagon for their fleecing of the American taxpayers, that Marriott puppet that tried to make us leave, the people who attend the Bilderberg, and the people who do not believe the Bilderberg exists. And this week the winner was the obvious controlled media that does not cover the Bilderberg meeting. We thought that was a shoe-in. Also, I'd like to just finish that Iran has dropped the dollar peg. They're not using U.S. currency anymore. They're only using the yen and the euro, something we've reported has been coming up. I'd like to apologize for not being able to do our depleted uranium story. We will get back on that. I know we said 2 weeks ago we would do that for a gentleman that emailed in. Our guest didn't come through for us today, but we will we'll start back on that and keep you abreast. And again, our website's therealnewsradio.com. Our email is onair@therealnewsradio.com. We'd like to hear from you if you'd like to send us comments or suggestions. We're going to do our best to get Michael Reagan on for next week. And next week, our guest is going to be Russell Means. He's the chief of the Lakota Indians. That's why we've done that story today, to kind of bring you up to speed. I think you'll find this very interesting, their story. And until next week, this is Farron saying, long live the free republic, and God help us all.
The federal government